Women Up Radio, designed to facilitate women's empowerment, improve your career, develop your talents, incorporate your passions, achieve fulfillment and success.
Hello, this is Women Up Radio, supporting Empower Women. And today we're talking about assertive communication for effective leadership and defining the level of leadership development to go to the top. I'm joined in the studio by my guest, Tulia Lopes, a communication and women's leadership expert and international speaker with a background in architecture and IT. Tulia is the author of Leading in High Heels and founder of the AWE Summit, that's Assertive Women Entrepreneurs, to give voice to women. So welcome to the program, Tulia.
Thank you very much, Anna. It's my pleasure.
So tell me, can we start? Will you tell me about your work and about how the AWE Summit came about?
As we call the Awe Summit,
Sorry,
around with awesome.
Yes. Oh, wonderful! Yes,
yes. That was the concept behind it. It started after 1 year that I moved to Switzerland. Mm-hmm. And I was already in the path of communication and working on communication and leadership, giving workshops and all the work in that line. And then for meeting people in Zurich, I started attending groups and business events, etc. And as I was already giving speech talks, I noticed immediately the lack of women on stage. But also on those meetings that were focused on women, I found a big gap between the presenters and the audience. And that really struck me. Yeah. I cannot generalize, of course, but I was feeling a big distance there. And I had this urge of bridging that gap.
Yeah.
And because I thought, like, well, you go to a meeting, the topic is interesting, and you feel like talking to the presenter afterwards. But I felt somehow, in many occasions, the opportunity was not there.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I felt like there was a bit distance. They kept themselves very enclosed with all the organizers or by themselves. I don't know. It was my feeling at the time.
Yeah.
And then I by the time I had met people, and I had this, well, let's organize an event. And for me, the core two pillars, they were like, one, I wanted it to be only women on stage. Mm-hmm. Because of the reasons I said before. Yeah. We go to events, business events, the majority is still men. And the second thing, I wanted to be storytelling. And yes. Why stories? Because stories connect with emotions. And that way I thought I could bridge that gap. That was the only two ideas I had in mind, nothing else. I just wanted an event for women, where women on common stage to share their stories, but to share why they are doing what they're doing, to share the journey and the ups and downs, because we know no stories is a line up the hill.
Yeah.
And but then the first event was a huge success because exactly of that. People got connected and they got emotion, and they really engaged with each other after the presentations. So from there, I said, I cannot stop. I have just to continue.
Yes.
And to make a long story short, this was in 2014. And since then, we have done six editions of the event, 3 in Zurich, 2 in Barcelona, and 1 in Porto.
Oh, really?
Yes. And the next one in Porto is happening in October.
Yes.
And the next one in Zurich is happening in November.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, because then it became, for me, the slogan is giving voice to women, is a platform to give voice to women, and also to to encourage and to foster collaboration.
Yeah.
So with all the speakers that I bring on board, I always have a conversation with them for them to be open, not only to present their story and promote themselves, because it's a good opportunity for that as well, but to be very open to collaboration, to be very open to mentoring, and to be very open to open their network to others, to really expand this community as becoming a global community.
Okay. And so how does this help drive the discourse for more women leaders?
By stories, I'm a true believer that storytelling is a key for connection, is a key to send your message across. Because if you think about it, in the past, before having all this technology, we would learn through stories.
Yes.
And the stories were, we learned tasks, and everything we would do would pass through generations through stories, through showing how to do things. And once you're telling your story from your own experience, this is very personal. But at the same time, it brings you like authority and credibility, because you have been there. You're not talking something by observation only, it's by acting upon it. So you have your experience, you have your emotions that goes with that. And emotions inspire and motivate people. So therefore, your call to action to inspire people is stronger than if I come to you with a set of theory and explanations on how you should do something and why you should do something, but based not on my personal story, but in something that you read, or if you learn someone else and someone else, like in third parties. So I believe that by telling your story, also empower yourself, because it's created an awareness of where you're standing and what are your values, what are your goals. And from there, your message becomes much more powerful to share with others.
Yeah, I know you're an expert in assertive communication, which obviously relates very much to telling your story and telling your story well. So for people who don't feel as comfortable communicating, how can they develop better assertive communication?
I believe first you have to understand how you communicate, because each of us, we have our own way of expressing ourselves. And some people, indeed, they have more difficulties in expressing their thoughts. And when they try, their message is not really clear. And there are other aspects as well. Some people, they express themselves, but they are perceived in a different way of how they want it in the first place. So I believe everything starts from one. It starts from you understanding how you communicate. Some people are extroverts, some people are introverts. And by being an introvert doesn't mean that you are not a good communicator or you're not an assertive communicator. It just means that your way of expressing yourself is different, by being more concise, by being more straight to the point. And that is, for me, the starting point. You have to understand where you're standing as a communicator, how people perceive you, and then what do you need to get your message to them. Because another important aspect here, when you are communicating, to be able to communicate assertively, you have to understand how the person or the people or the group listening to you, you have to understand their background. How do they understand the topic you're bringing on the table? And you have to find a language that will bridge to them, that they then will understand what you want to talk about. So there are two parts here. First, you have to understand how you express yourself and work on that to make the best of it, because then you become an authentic communicator. right? But at the same time, when you go out there and you have to present your idea or you have to present a proposal, you have to understand the background of the people that you're talking to and adapt your message to their understanding. I say to my clients in a very simple way, is like the same topic that you presented to an adult, you have to find a different language to present to a child.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you understand that there's a different way of communicating the same topic to an adult and to a child, then you understand that for every group you're communicating, your communication is going to be effective and assertive if you understand how that group communicates.
Yeah. So basically, if someone's talking to a group of engineers, it would be a totally different way of talking than if they were talking to creative or performing arts groups.
Exactly. And that doesn't mean that you're going to lose yourself on that.
Yeah.
Because there's another thing. People might think, oh my God, but I know nothing about engineering, or I'm not an artist, what I'm going to do. But you do have to do your research and see how these people understand communication, how they feel comfortable, and how they would connect with you.
It's like with different countries. And adapting what you say to the different country that you're talking to. Okay, so in communication, what areas should we focus on to best effect?
Believe it or not, listening. Listening is where most of us fail, and listening is everything about communication. And if you see all the good leaders and charismatic people, one thing they have in common is the ability to listen actively. And most of us, even more with this world, crazy world we live in, where it is fast, we are not listening at all. And why is it important to listen? Is it falls back into what I said before. You need to understand the other side world in order to connect, to send your message. And if you're not listening the other side's world, your interlocutor, the person out there, the group out there, you're sending a message that might not resonate to them. Yeah. So listening is one of the most important. And the other thing is, and many of us are not really aware, is the body, is the nonverbal communication. Our body is talking all the time and loud. I say this to my clients. Your body is talking loud all the time because the body is instinctive and the body feels and the body reacts. And we are not aware of that most of the time. And I do believe, not moving too far from the subject, just a comment that the reason of many illness and frustrations, depression, is because we are not listening to our body, because our body sends message to us all the time. Yeah. And if you will become a more perceptive person, for the moment you start listening actively, it's not only listening with your ears, it's listening with your whole body and with your eyes and connection and feeling the energy coming from the other person. You will start understanding people more. And I tell to my clients, it's very entertaining observing people. Just go to improve your communication, sit anywhere in a coffee and just observe. If you try to listen what people are saying and what their body is saying, and you will realize that many people say something and their body is saying something else. Yeah. And what happened there, when you have this misalignment, our own body instinctively, we are observing that without being conscious. And this is when we are talking to someone and we feel that something's not right. We don't know exactly what it is because we are not trained to that. But when you are trained to that, you start observing that there's something in the communication and in the body language that's not working. And we instinctively eliminate those people immediately. Yes. We kind of like, the trust is not built there immediately. We assess very quickly, instinctively, and then we feel there's something not wrong, not right, and then we already block that person from us. But when you start developing this assertively, you might then put yourself as an observer, as an active listener, and with listening not only with your ears, and try to find out what is the misalignment. And then you might be able to bring that in the conversation in a gentle manner to clarify why you feel that misalignment for yourself. And if it's in the case and you're training someone, or you're connecting professionally, that you're helping someone to achieve something, and that might be a great source, I believe it will be a great source for you of information for you to move forward from a problem.
Yeah.
And to finalize, I always say, if there any doubt, trust the body.
I know, you're so right, because all of my biggest mistakes have been when I've had a gut instinct telling me no, and then I've overridden it and gone ahead and done something. But when I've met the person, I've been like, no, there's something I don't like, there's something I don't trust. Even though all the words have been positive, but there's been, a question, there's been something that I've been like, ugh, no. But then I've gone ahead, and it's always been a disaster.
Yeah, but the interesting thing here is gut feelings are not something magical. It's a collection of information that we absorb unconsciously, and that they build up our knowledge, our inner knowledge. So again, it's our body with all the wisdom collected throughout our experiences, our very experiences, like unconsciously even, telling us that from the information we have, something there is not right. So, and then when we listen to that and then collect all the facts around us, then we balance them, and then we say, okay, it's correct. I should not follow that. Because sometimes we cannot forget that a body is coming from a very primal instinctive form, right?
Yes.
And is trying to protect us, and might sense something that as a danger, let's put that way, in a very simple way. But when we analyze and we step back on the situation and put ourselves as an observer and collect the facts happening around, we might say, oh, that's okay. I've been through that already. I know exactly why I'm feeling this. It's okay. I can deal with that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't think it's only about following gut feelings without stopping and thinking. In most cases, there's a lot of information there signing us that it just hold on a second, pay attention.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Pay attention, analyze the facts, and understand, because also if you're feeling that, means there's something there you still need to work on.
Yes.
Even if you managed to deal with it in the past, it means that it's not fully healed. It's not, you are not fully in control of that situation.
Very good point. I hadn't thought of that. Okay, so as women, in what way can we use communication and collaboration to help us become better leaders?
And communication, I go back what I said, be more assertive, and be more assertive by understanding the way you communicate, improving your way you communicate to be able to get your message out in the environment you want to get your message out. Another important aspect that we all have to learn, and especially women, because we have more emotional, we're more sensitive, and that once you understand communication and expressing yourself, you also will understand that you should not take everything personally. That a disagreement doesn't mean disagreeing with you as a person. It's disagreeing with your point.
Yes.
And we should be prepared to deal with the situation from the factual aspect and reach a conclusion or a decision from there. Because when we take something personally, what many do because are not prepared and not trained for that, then you lose your ground. Then you are in the defensive mode, and you're not concentrated on the topic in discussion.
Yeah.
So this is then you lose your capability to reach to a decision that would be the best decision for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
And another thing is to ask questions. The best communicators ask good questions. The best leaders ask good questions. There's even a book that I can quote from John Maxwell. He is the old guy in the leadership in America, and he has this very good book called Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. And the point of the book is that when you're able to ask questions, then goes back of the capability of being an active listener.
Yeah.
And with that, you're collecting all the information you need to understand what's happening in the environment around you in the case of your team. And then you have all the information, all the needs to plan strategically to move forward with the support of everybody. Because when people feel that you are listening to them, they feel like they have a voice and that you take them seriously. And from that, you create a strong bond. So that this is why communication is the base for leadership. There's no way to be a leader without being a good communicator. And the collaboration comes out from, once you understand this whole process of communication and understand your way, understand how to reach out there, you also will understand that you don't know everything, that you should not know everything, and because those people that know everything, nobody wants to do anything with them.
Yeah.
Because the worst is when you're talking to someone and they are like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. So they are not listening. They are not open, really, to embrace differences and to really engage in a conversation. It's their way. They're encapsulated in their own world. So once we are open, good communicators, we also understand that you have some expertise or some tools that I don't have, and reaching out is a great way of expanding and building bridges and of collaboration. I do believe that collaboration is a key to reach farther. It's like we might go slower, but I think we reach much more when we are able to share, and it's more pleasant.
Yes.
And I don't think we should do everything alone. And we women, we have the tendency of trying to do everything on our own and try to figure out everything on our own. And we can discuss the reasons for that. And sometimes it can be insecurity, or sometimes just not knowing how to do it. And I myself, I can tell from my own experience that I had to learn how to do that. Because I was raised to be very, move forward, do your things, go there and fight. So I was not raised to reach out and to ask. I was raised to do things. And it took me a while to learn that. And it's a constant learning. But honestly, nowadays, I always try to bring someone. I have an idea. I see who can join me in this idea, and I find this much more. It's more pleasant.
Yeah.
It brings more richness to everybody involved.
Learn
more together.
Yeah, it sounds great. It's such a nicer way of doing things, and also when you're used to doing things on your own, it's a very lonely place to be. So if you can do something with somebody else, great. I think that's a wonderful idea. So what do you think, apart from having good communication and also collaborating well, what are the main challenges that are faced by ambitious women who are striving to get to the top? Because it's still very difficult.
Yeah. One thing I would say, I do believe, and we talked this about before we started this conversation, that the corporate world as such is not really prepared to welcome women in the way that we would like to be there. Well, like I say, we, the ones that are prepared to reach certain positions that they say the position is here for you. And we know from facts that many women where they reach a level where they could take this big step to certain positions, to certain high position level in terms of leadership, they just don't go for it because they feel that there's more to life than that.
Yes.
Yeah. But if we come from the base, like us building up our ladies to get to that position, because we also know from facts that the big problem is, the big issue is the glass ceiling at the middle level management. And many women get there and they just don't find a way to break the glass, or they just feel so demotivated by the environment that they just give up.
Yes.
There are many biases and stereotypes, and from both sides. And it's not like I'm not saying here that's men against women, us and them. It's like the whole culture brings a lot of biases that still are in our education, how we educate girls and how we educate boys, that this goes up in our whole career. And the ones that are more career focused, that are more and they really want to reach those positions, are the ones that needs the support and also to have more role models there that support them to break those glasses, that it's still not there. So I find this very complex. The way it is. I believe we are in a moment that the conversation is started, and as we see a lot of events and movements towards empowering women and bringing women in leadership, and I believe it's a long process, but in general I see that we still have a long way to go. Certain places, certain countries, certain cultures, they are already more prepared. And this comes from the basis. This comes from their educations from very early age. And unfortunately, some cultures are not prepared. And because I don't believe we are doing anyone's favor of just having a position there for women, as is what we see in the news and so on and so forth. Like, oh, we have all these positions for women. Where are women? Women are, there are more women in doing well, better grades in university, but then they don't reach those positions. Yeah. I do believe they don't reach those positions because the path is so full of obstacles that gets to the point that they say, what's the point of doing this?
Yes.
And also the communication aspect and this whole thing. These companies have such a strong male-dominated environment that we are like the alien coming into this. Yeah. And although I do believe that once we step in an environment, we do have to learn the rules of engagement, the rules of the game. You cannot play a game without knowing the rules. But the game should be prepared for have the both genders playing the game.
Yeah.
If you put in the game, but it's a male game, it's not going to work. And I give you an example, like an analogy. I have when I was living in Dublin, I met a great community of Cubans, and their favorite game is domino. And it's really a male game. They don't like women playing. And I used to be very naughty, and I would say, I want to play. They would allow me to play for being polite. But while I was at the table playing, there was no energy. There was no collaboration, and there was no willingness to play with me.
Oh, really?
Yes. And this is a true story, but it's a very good analogy to show. Yeah. Like, I got to their environment, they accepted me, quote, quote, like they took me, but they didn't really accept me. Yeah. So they would play, they were looking forward for me to lose as fast as I could for them to go back and play the game the way they wanted. So that's what I see when women for the corporate environment come to me for support. Their problems, their issues are always the same. Like, I'm not heard, when my voice is ignored in a meeting. My team doesn't follow me, and So there's a lot of aspects out there, but at the same time you have examples of people that of later say, I never felt that. I had I was privileged to be in a welcoming environment that allowed me to grow, that I had a mentor who was even a male mentor who helped me to go through the process. This is also a reality, but we have to accept that is the minority and it's not happening everywhere. We hope that one day that this will be more balanced.
Yes.
Because I think once we have more women in the environment, just proceed to have more in number, it will become more common to see us there. So then our way of communication as well will become part of the culture.
Yeah.
So it's a long process, I believe.
Yes. And so what do you think the priorities, what priorities should women focus on when they're climbing the ladder to make it less complicated for them?
Well, I believe it's to have clarity on where you want to go and understand that this is a process, and as a process, it is one step after the other. That you cannot have everything at the same time. And in terms of women, we like having family, having children, being a wife, and being a career, and thinking that the environment culturally we still don't not find the support as a man find in that, like the man focus on his career, and if he doesn't give an amount of time to the family, it's okay.
Yeah.
If it doesn't give the amount of time to the wife, it's okay. Okay, I'm not saying that's okay in general, but that's the way we perceive.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we know from stories like men, because they are dedicated to their family and they want to change these biases and the stereotype as well, that when they are in the meeting room, they say, I have to leave early because I'm going to collect my kid on school. Yeah. Usually people, men and women, say, wow, that's good that he is so into his family. And if a woman says that, it's not seen as good. It's saying, like, again, she's giving more priority to the family, to the business. So I think this conversation has to change. And it's where we have to understand each other's priorities and balance on that. So, and for women building their career, it's about talking to the family as well and explaining how important it is, and see how, as a family, this process will work together. Because it might be the case that sometimes the husband would have to give more support and being him more at home, or being him more collecting the kids.
Yeah.
So it's about finding this balance. And there's a good talk from Ariana Huffington that she says, the ladies, you can have, if you think that you're going to climb the ladder and having everything, you are absolutely insane. You can have everything, but one step after the other.
Yes.
So that's what I truly believe. Also is about finding this balance, that you have a fulfillment, because what's the point, and we talked about this beforehand, of building a career where then you sacrifice your family, which is important for you, your kids, which is important for you, your marriage, which is important for you, and you're so miserable, but then you have a title.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
many people, they just focus on prestige and material things, and they forget that what they like and what makes them feel good, as well as their health, is equally important in success, if not more important, and then fit the career into the rest of their life rather than fit their life into their career.
Exactly. Just to add one more thing here, I would say, don't forget to look for mentors. Look for support. Look for someone who has done what you want to do, and get mentorship. Get people to support you, because it can be a very lonely path.
Yes.
And you need people that will give you that tap in the back and say, "That's fine. Keep going," and to help you to have more clarity. That's very important. And back to what I said before, reach out for support.
You are listening to Anna Letitia Cook at Women Up Radio.
So moving on slightly different direction. What do you see as being pivotal to the development of the next generation of women leaders? So where do you think they'll come from? And in what areas do you think women will achieve the most progress?
From my perspective, I believe the world by itself is shouting for a more inclusive environment in the workspace. Because as we see, the cases of depression, burnout are increasing more and more. So that is really a sign on our face that the whole system is sick.
Yeah.
So the other aspect is there's no guarantee anymore as a career, as a profession. Nowadays, the pace things are happening, technology is changing so fast that some roles, some positions are becoming obsolete very fast. So we have to become more flexible, more inclusive, and really willing to collaborate. And I believe the skills that are demanded right now are soft skills. Yeah. And what are soft skills is becoming active listeners, improve our communication, be good decision makers, and problem solving, and understand that we have to work together to reach somewhere. Yeah. And this inclusiveness is very good for us women. Because women, we are more inclusive from our own nature of being the ones looking after our offsprings, and to have this capacity and this capability of collaborating to each other. Because if you go back to more some culture that preserves a more simple structure, a functional structure, women are really the only way they can survive is if they support each other. Yes. Right? Yeah. But we are realizing nowadays, and we see in the conversations all over, that we have to go back and to start knowing who our neighbor is.
Yeah.
And we have to go back to our community.
Yes.
We have to go back to understand that alone we are not going to survive. We are not animals to live alone. We are animals to live in pack. And the same is needed in the work environment. So what I see is the next generation, they are already being, I would say, educated in a way that they have to be more flexible because of all the new signatures that are appearing. But to me, it's important for them to understand, especially the young ladies, to build up their confidence and their voice, and being able to speak up, and being able to not to compromise so much on what they want, really to have a goal and to have clarity, and believe that they can go and find the tools and find the people that will support them. I believe that's what we need, because I say to my people, to my lady, is nobody is going to give us the space we are looking for. We have to build that space.
Yes.
And we build that space from ourselves, from knowing what we want to do and what we aim for our future, and building ourselves up on that direction, and also finding the people to bring along with us to build that we want to for our future.
Yeah. Okay, so what are the different levels or stages of leadership that we need to pass through to get to the top?
I will give you an example of one system that I've learned in the past that I really find effective for everything I do. It's called the situational leadership. And what it's about is about 4 stages of leadership, but is again about understanding from your perspective as a leader, and understanding that you cannot give the same type of leadership to all different people, because every person is in a different level. It comes exactly from all understanding how you communicate to them. And from the other perspective, you as being led, you also have to understand the level you are to be able to ask the right questions, to help you to move forward. So in this situational leadership is the four core phases of this leadership. One is directing, which is focus on beginners, because beginners, you have to explain to them what is the task to be done and what exactly the results you expect. And then you guide them and you direct them on the steps to reach that, so that you are more there as a guidance. Yeah. And the next level would be the coaching one, which is when the person goes through the beginner level and understands more what has to be done in a context. Then they might get a little bit disillusioned, because they then understand the amount of work or the responsibilities. And then is when you come as a coach.
Yes.
It's because then you are going to still direct them what has to be done, but you give them some more space to express their learnings and ask them suggestions, what they feel about the situation, and help them to find the solutions. So the third level would be the supporting level, which is for the ones that are already performing.
Yeah.
And they already know how to get there. And you kind of say to them, okay, we want to reach this result, and we have done this in this way. I'm here in the back for you, and go there. And if you need anything, come here, and I will support you. So, and finally, the last one is delegation, which is very interesting, because many people who, when they get to leading positions, they think delegating is about leadership. They just need to delegate. But you delegate to the ones that are already ready. So it's someone that I come to you, Anne, and say, okay, Anne, that's what we need.
Yeah.
And you figure it out. You know the structure of the company, you know the culture of the company, you know the results we had in the past, you know all the information, you are self-reliant, you're able to find your sources and resources to move forward, to reach the result. And you will get back to me in case you're leader if you need something, but you will be walking on your own legs. And that I find very interesting, because as I said before, many problems happen in teams because the leader of the team comes and say, hello guys, that's what I want, and you figured out. Yeah. But then in your team, you have people in all these 4 different levels.
Yes.
And if they are not ready, they are not in this last level, it's going to be a disaster. And this is why then there's the frustration, etc., and then all the blaming.
Yeah.
So if I would suggest something, I would suggest people to read this book. I can give you the information about it. It's called The Situational Leadership Strategy. So.
Okay. No, well, all the books that you've mentioned, I'll put a link on the page with the interview so people can find them, which will be great.
Excellent.
So, in view of what you've just said, how can corporations and organisations best facilitate the progress of women through all these levels of their business, right up to board level?
I think we mentioned this before, and I'm just rephrasing. I believe first is the willingness to do so by creating an environment that welcomes them.
Yes.
Back to my story in playing dominoes.
Yeah.
So you can say, yes, okay, you come. Here's a position for you. Here's a seat for you. But if you don't welcome me, if you don't understand that I would need a time to understand the culture of the company, to adapt myself, if you're not willing to listen to what I have to say from my experience and in an active way, like being an active listener without judgment. And this is not going to happen. That's going to happen on the papers, on the books, but it's not going to be effective. And what's going to happen, these ladies will be frustrated. There is not going to be a communication, and it generates frustration to everybody. And by being open and welcome and really knowing, assessing this person that's welcoming, listening to this person and see what are the skills that this person still need to develop.
Yes.
Then also that comes from the person as well, knowing being aware of your own skill sets, and understanding while understanding the culture of the company, seeing what you need to learn and reaching out for those trainings. But then the company should also be willing to provide that, and understanding that this is also a process. That person cannot come to a new environment and immediately start delivering results in a certain level that they expect. So that is the both sides communication there.
Yes.
And I believe, unfortunately, many companies only say they want women on board, but they are not really prepared to have them.
Yeah, very sad, but I think very true. Right. Mm-hmm. And so what about authenticity?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, as women, is there a risk of us losing our true selves as we develop into leaders? I mean, can women remain authentic and also climb the top of the career ladder?
I find it interesting the way you formulate this question, because it comes, for me, what I see is the perspective of that type of woman that had to go up the ladder, kicking and elbowing, and had to perform putting herself in a very male kind of behavior.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're doing that, of course, you lose a lot of yourself on that aspect, because you are literally forcing to break things, and you showing them is, I can do it, but from a ground that's to project out there something that probably is not what you really are. However, I do believe that to be a true leader, you have to be authentic. Yeah. Because the real leader, if you look into history, the people who really moved masses and that really inspired masses, they were themselves. Yes. In the first place. They were not someone else, and they're really aligned to their core and to their values, and that is very difficult when you get into a world, in a corporate world, where there's no space for you. Yeah. For really to be yourself. We come back to that again. Yeah. So this is the question here, I'd say, to my clients, is like, you have to assess the environment. Would that environment allow you to grow as a person? Because even if we have to learn the rules of engagement and the rules of game when we are arriving in any environment, I cannot go to your house and this just behave the way I want, the way I believe is correct, the way I behave in my house. The first thing, when I go to your house, if I'm going to spend a weekend with you, I have to observe the way you manage your house, the way you organize your house, what you like and what you don't like, and then I adapt to that. If I'm going to live with you for a while, then along the line, I can suggest you other different ways of doing certain things that might improve the way you live.
Yes.
And then this is your house, you might welcome and you say, wow, I never thought that before. Yeah. But you have to be open for that as well, because I might suggest something to you, say, no, I always done this way, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So if I am in this situation with you, and then I'm living with you, and this is something that bothers me, because I feel like, it's difficult to me to deal with this aspect of living with Anne, is my question to decide, am I going to continue?
Yeah.
Am I going to continue here living with you? So it's the same as in your position. So you have to say, okay, there's a block here. Is there a way that I can go around this block? Is there someone that can help me? Is there someone that can help to talk to? In our case here, maybe Anne has a best friend that can talk to her and show to her that's better, that my way of doing things will be better for her and improve her home environment, just put it that way. Yeah. So it is the same in the company, but you have to know where you're stepping in. And there are moments that you have to compromise. As in life, we have to compromise in certain things.
Yeah.
But losing yourself is a completely different thing. Yeah. We have to have to show results within the company, but we also have to be aligned with our goals. And if showing, okay, I compromise a little bit here because I know this is the step I need to get there. But this goes in phases. You cannot compromise your whole personality to reach certain positions. And I believe when you do that is when you fall into those burnouts and depressions and etc.
Yeah, exactly. Because anything that when you try to change yourself too much, when you hide who you really are, it just makes you ill.
Yeah.
So, very good.
And you lose credibility because people sense you and they sense there's something behind there that's not authentic.
Yeah.
And as I said before, I do believe that the true leaders are authentic.
Yes. Yeah. And also it is coming back to what you said at the beginning about body language and reading people's bodies and what they're saying, what their eyes are saying, etc. If someone's not being authentic, you can feel it. So very good point. Okay, so any other last tips for us to take away? What do you consider the most effective strategies that our listeners can use to improve their own options?
I will repeat myself here. I would say first, it's really important that we have clarity or where we want to go. But before that is allowing ourselves to have this vision. Because I think our generation, it was very difficult. I don't know, I was not raised to believe that I could do big enough. Yeah. I was raised to really fight for my position, but you could see there was a limit there because it was not expected that you could be too big. Let's put that way.
Yes.
And I think the first thing is to allow that you yourself to dream as big as you want. That's the first thing. And the second is then to have a plan. Because even if you have this big dream and to get there, you have to have a blueprint to get there. You have to have a plan, and it has to be a strategic plan, and it has to be aligned with your values, what's important for you. And I think it's time for us to start really considering that we should, our work should match our lifestyle, not the other way around, which is what we have been doing always. Like we develop a career, we plan for a career, and then we try to adapt everything around the career. And I think it's time for us to really balance that, and really when we are building our careers and analyze the type of lifestyle we want to have and see if it's that compatible with our career. Because if you're a woman that you're very family driven and you really want to have many kids, so if you aim a top position, a CEO position, you are going to have lots of struggles there. I'm not saying that's not possible, because we know that we have examples of that, but you will need a certain infrastructure around you to reach there than someone that have a different perspective in life. So that's very important for you to know exactly what you want to go and understand that's one step after the other. And if you go to move into the career, corporate world, or you need to learn the rules of engagement, and you need to learn the game. You need to learn who are the key players in that environment you want to get in, and what type of communication they have. How can you reach them? And you need to learn how to self-promote yourself. But there's another thing that women, we are not so good at that. It's like we are good in talking around, talking about, but we are not really good about talking ourselves up. When we have opportunities, when we're networking events, if you realize that most of women only network events, they are more social events than business oriented, because we feel more confident to talk about social aspects than talking about business. And we have to learn that communication as well. And network more and be more effective on that network, and constantly invest on ourselves, because that's another aspect that I see even more for entrepreneurs and small business owners, where we are very much alone, and we don't have all the infrastructure as a corporate world has